The first 24 years of my first marriage I would have to describe as near perfect. Yeah, I know, almost every man cheated on thinks that and that they were perfect husbands. So did I. I was blind and unaware of my own flaws. The end started a year ago last summer. My wife was withdrawing from me. Our conversations were shorter, she became annoyed when I flirted with her, and she would respond with a chill when I would pat her but when we were alone in the house. And there was much less intimacy. Finally, we had settled into mere coexistence for the last few months of our marriage. My name is Mark. For most of this I was 50. So was my wife, Lisa. I am a lawyer, I used to be a litigator, but I recently moved over to estate planning. Lisa is a 4th grade schoolteacher. We are both fairly fit. This is the story of the end of my first marriage and the start of my second. We met and fell in love in college. We married while I was in law school, and she took on the job of supporting me through school. For almost all of our marriage, our love never dimmed. Until this fateful year. At the end of this summer, our youngest daughter, Linda, left for State University. Our other child, Larry, was already at State, so Linda's departure made us empty nesters. Lisa became depressed at becoming an empty nester. She was a great mom. She put most of her energy into being a great mom. But with the kids having flown the nest, she had no place for that energy could go. She moped about, and her reaction to anything I suggested was to bicker. I tried to direct her energy toward activities we could do together, but she had no interest. Only her return to teaching at the end of summer vacation lifted her sadness. But it did not improve our relationship. By December our relationship had declined to near zero, and efforts by me to do anything about it only annoyed her. To her, everything was my fault. She did tell me of a new teacher who had moved into the classroom next to hers. Lisa's description talking with this colleague were the only thing animated our conversations. By December this colleague was the only topic of our rare conversations. Any topic I would suggest resulted in only bored responses from Lisa. Jeremy was such a clever and funny guy. Eventually, there was little talking at all. All we really had together was quietly watching TV. December saw a dramatic change. She started coming home later, an hour or more later. Instead of grading papers and working on lesson plans at school after the students were dismissed, she was now doing it at night in the den instead of watching TV with me. We were rarely in the same room together. She even took her meals into the den to eat. She watched TV there when she finished schoolwork. It was like I was living with a ghost. Christmas vacation with the kids home from college had Lisa happy and talkative with the kids, but she still ignored me. Even an expensive gift of jewelry elicited no positive response. The kids noticed and asked about it. I told them I was worried about it, but I couldn't figure it out. Lisa told them it was nothing, it was just the way old couples are. A week after Christmas, after the kids returned to college, I tried to confront Lisa. I walked into the den, said we needed to talk. She just sighed and shot back a sharp, "What now? Do you still love me?" I asked. "You are so needy. What the hell do you think?" I was stunned. She had never used obscenities before. She then turned away and continued to grade papers. I stood there looking at her for a full minute, then said with a sigh, "I don't think you do. You are not a wife and you're not even a very good roommate. I still love you, but unless things change, that won't be enough." She just kept grading papers as if I wasn't there. I walked out of the room with what I knew was my answer. Then one evening, a few weeks later, Lisa came home much later than ever before. It was after 10. She had never been this late from work before. I was genuinely worried, but when I called her cell phone, it went to voicemail. When I finally heard her car pull into the driveway, I went to the door to meet her, but she rushed past me with a quick, "Got to go to the bathroom." Her hair was messed up, her clothes wrinkled and carelessly put together. Her lipstick, makeup and mascara badly smudged. "Are you okay?" I called after her. "Yeah, fine," she called out without bothering to stop or look my way. I followed her up the stairs, but she rushed to our bathroom and locked the door behind her. I could no longer even pretend that she wasn't having an affair. I went out and sat on our front porch, staring into the darkness and pondering what to do. Was there anything in this marriage that I wanted to salvage? Even if she came crawling to me on her knees, could I stay with this woman who so callously threw away our lives together and inflicted so much pain on me? After a half an hour I got up and went upstairs to our bedroom. She was already in her frumpy nightgown and on her phone tapping away. She didn't even look up. I walked into the bathroom and took my shower. On returning to the bedroom, I found her feigning sleep. Her still-lit cell phone was proof she had just put it down. I gave her a push and said in a harsh tone, "Get up. It is time to talk." She turned and looked at me. "We're finished. Tonight, you revealed that you have absolutely no respect for me or the 25 years of our marriage. Tonight, you went far beyond the daily humiliation you have had me endure these sad months. Tonight, you waltzed in her, you didn't even try to hide it. I have been hanging around vainly hoping that the woman I had loved for 25 years, the woman who so tenderly raised my 2 dear children, would return. Clearly, that woman is dead. Murdered, I suspect, but whatever you are." I could see in her eyes a growing terror at this utterly unfamiliar tone I was using. "Don't worry, sweetie, I'll be gone soon. I just want you to know it will probably take only a couple of weeks to move my stuff out and be gone. I'm done. You will get half of everything and you, your lover, can live happily ever after. Just keep him out of this house until I leave." I walked out of the room and moved into our guest room. The next morning, I was up early and waited for her. When she finally got up, she came downstairs, glanced at me at the kitchen table, then quickly scurried into the den. I then pulled out my laptop up onto the kitchen table and began to rebuild my life. Lisa's journal, March 12. All week Jeremy had been promising me that on Friday we would reach a new level in my sexual experience, but I had no idea what he had planned. My anticipation was sky high. When we finally reached the motel, I could barely stand it. In the room, we both stripped as soon as the door was shut. Jeremy had brought his special bag, so I had some idea what was in store. No foreplay was necessary. It was a fast and furious. Jeremy was as excited as I was. Though this first session lasted only 10 minutes or so afterwards, as we lay arm in arm, Jeremy told me that before we started the next bit, he whispered to me, "Do you trust me?" which was code for our game. "Yes, master. First thing, and this is non-negotiable, you have to snort this coke," Jeremy demanded. He has suggested this dozens of times in the past, but never when we were playing his master game. I had always refused, but the rules of master was to never break character unless it was absolutely necessary, and I had never broken character yet. Besides, I had seen Jeremy use that stuff before, and I have to admit I was curious. "Yes, master," and I did it. We had lost track of time, and it was well into night. We both knew that by being this late, we would face questions at home. I didn't care that much, but I really didn't want heightened suspicion since we had the big weekend coming up. But Jeremy was worried. He rushed leaving and we skipped our usual shower. When I got home, Mark was there at the door. He may be dull, but he is not an idiot. He knew something was up. I was a mess and I quickly rushed past him and upstairs to the bathroom. I heard him following me up the stairs, so I quickly went into the bathroom and locked the door. Mark just turned around and went back downstairs. I took a shower and climbed into bed and texted Jeremy. He told me his wife was furious for his being so late. He really needs to tell her and get it over with. Mark came in later while I was still texting Jeremy. I ignored him, keeping my eyes focused on the phone. He went into the bathroom and took his shower without saying a word. When he came out, I was turned over pretending to be asleep. He then gave me a heavy push and told me to sit up. He was angrier than I had ever seen him, angrier than I could imagine was possible. It was a strange anger. He did not yell, his face did not redden. He spoke slowly and deliberately, but his words and tone warned that he could not be trifled with. His anger was measured, his words deliberate and carefully chosen. He called me a whore. He told me the woman who he used to be married to and who raised his children was dead. He then said it would take him a couple of weeks to move out. He then left for the guest room. Well, at least that was done with. Jeremy had insisted that we not break it off yet, but Mark had other plans. That it is finally done, it is not so bad. I had thought that there would have been more crying and complaining, but no crying or complaining. When the kids find out, that they will love Jeremy. They will want me to be happy and Jeremy will make for a good father figure for them. I need to think of a way to tell them. There's no hurry, and I don't really have to worry about Mark, he doesn't really know how to talk to the kids. Next weekend is all set. Jeremy and I will spend it up the old mountain rest cabin I've been to so many times. The idea of finally waking up next to my love has me excited. And now that everything is out in the open, everything will be so much easier now. That Saturday morning, I spent moving money around to ensure she didn't get there first. She would get half, but I wasn't going to let her into our accounts until we settled. I did leave enough in our checking for her to continue without noticing any difference for the next week. She never checked our finances anyway. I applied for 2 new credit cards and prepared to cancel the joint cards. We didn't talk the whole weekend. She hid in the den, and I finished my little project and went grocery shopping. The following Monday, after she left for work, I called the office and told them I wouldn't be in. I then went into the den. Lisa kept a written diary on her desktop computer. A creature of habit, she preferred her desktop to laptops or tablets. I had never seen her diary, but I knew it was there. It was password protected, but she had all her passwords written on a sheet of paper in her desk. Every Sunday night for most of our marriage she went to the den and wrote a page or so. What I read in her diary was shocking. She wrote about the affair in disturbing detail. She was into stuff I would not have thought she would like. References to me were few, but when mentioned, it was insulting. I printed off copies and emailed myself the whole diary. I then checked emails. More than half were from the prime suspect, Jeremy Sims. A dozen of the more recent ones had attachments. Jeremy had been sending video clips of their sexual adventures. How romantic. Later that afternoon, after the students had been dismissed, I called Betty, Lisa's best friend at work. I asked her if we could talk. There was a pause, and then a tentative, "Hey, Mark, how are you, what's up?" "Betty, I need your help," I pleaded. "Can you spare half an hour? Can we meet? It's about Lisa." There was a very long pause. "Yeah, sure, Mark. Let's meet up. We have a lot to talk about. I can be at the Starbucks near the school at 4 o'clock. Can you be there?" "I'm leaving now." I was at Starbucks 10 minutes early. So was Betty. As I walked up to Betty, she hugged me and said, "I am so sorry, Mark. I should have called you before now. I just didn't have the courage." I bought us both a coffee. We sat down, and she explained that almost from the start of the school year, the new teacher, Jeremy Sims, had been monopolizing all of Lisa's free time. Then in early December things took a turn at a Christmas faculty party. The teacher's lounge had been decorated for Christmas, and Sims had hung some mistletoe up above the door. When Lisa walked in, he pointed to the mistletoe and demanded his kiss. Lisa embraced him and they kissed passionately. Several other teachers and I saw it. We were all shocked. Lisa and Sims left the school together. They drove separately in the same direction. That's what I figured. One day I left early. There is a motel down the road from the school. I drove by and both their cars were parked there. Other teachers have told me that they had seen the same thing. Betty continued, "She doesn't have any friends anymore. Everyone avoids her. And she avoids me. I guess my opinion means something to her and she clearly doesn't want to hear it." "Does everyone know? Does the principal know?" I asked. "Everyone knows. Principal Connor knows. In fact, Connor and I have talked about in detail." "Shit," was the only response I could utter. Mark, Sims is a real snake. He is still hitting on other teachers, mostly married ones. They have all come up to me telling me to warn Lisa. I tried, but she called us liars, and said I was just jealous. The principal knows too, but no one wants to bring a sexual harassment charge against him. The principal told me in strictest confidence that he was transferred here because of 2 substantiated sexual harassment complaints at his previous school. Thank you, Betty. I am sorry I have put you in the middle of all this. I then drove by the motel Betty told me about and there was Lisa's car. Even though I knew it was over, actually seeing it was painful. It was another very late night for Lisa, well after 10 before she got home. Neither of us spoke. I left for bed as she reheated the dinner I had made for her. The next couple days I'd work in my office in the morning and go back to the house to do more work with the diary. By Thursday, I had almost all that I needed, and I had printed several copies of her journal just in case. At 3 o'clock, I left for Lisa's school. I arrived a few minutes after my cheating wife had left with her lover and went in to talk to the principal. "Collins, you need to get rid of Predator and keep him away from children while he is trying to fuck every woman in this school. You are only lucky that the only woman stupid enough to give in to him was my idiot wife." "Yes, Mr. Murphy. I guess I have been expecting this. Problem is I don't have the evidence to do anything officially. Well, you damn well better do more than that now. Here is your evidence. I handed him copies of the diary. These are from her computer. Now, I expect you need to fire Jeremy Sims. You tell that to the superintendent, and if he's not going to fire him, the media will find out you are covering for this sexual predator. My wife is to be put on probation, and I want her to stay here at this school as a condition of her probation. But I ask you to hold off till Monday. I need the weekend to get my stuff out of the house with no drama. She and Sims are off on a secret junket this weekend. I can do that. This will be messy, though. His wife is pregnant, said Collins. I then headed home. As I came to my driveway, I was surprised to find Lisa and Shithead's cars parked in my driveway. I blocked him in and went inside. They were upstairs in the master bedroom, with the sounds of hard lovemaking filling the house. I crept upstairs, grabbed a baseball bat from my son's room, put my smartphone on video, placed it in my top shirt pocket with the lens poking out, and quietly pushed open the door to my bedroom. Lisa was on top of Jeremy, grinding her pussy into his mouth while sucking his dick. They were so engaged in themselves they didn't notice me standing in the doorway. I stood there frozen for a few seconds, my heart shattering. Then I put my courtroom game face on and tapped the bat against the open door 3 times to get their attention. Lisa looked up, allowing his prick to come unplugged from her mouth. She then yelled out, "You son of a bitch, get the fuck out of here. Pervert." Oh, sweetheart, I do think I have bit more of a right to be in this bedroom than fuckface does. You are my wife. I responded in a calm, determined voice. As the 2 naked bodies untangled, I said, "Gee, only the one lover today? Slowing down are we, Lisa?" Jeremy just stared at the bat. Then added, with a touch of sadness, "Why our marital bed in our family home? Couldn't you even wait a week to allow me a small shred of dignity as I leave? Is your heart that cold?" She didn't even look up as she dressed. "Anyway, we have some financial stuff to talk about." I continued. "I was going to wait till this evening, when you were going to tell me about your weekend in the mountains, but now will do." They both looked up wondering how I knew. "I have cancelled all your credit cards since they were all joint with me. I pulled all the money out of savings accounts and CDs, and I have discontinued my direct deposit to our checking account. Only your paycheck will go into that account for now. This is temporary. You will get half of everything with the divorce plus alimony, but until you have a lawyer, I need to be sure the creep doesn't run off on us with anything more than your booty." I then pulled out her new card and laid it down on her dresser. "Your new credit card. It has a credit balance of $2,000, but when you need a recharge, just call me. It will easily cover the cabin with enough left over for a couple of trips to McDonald's. I wished you had chosen a different cabin than the one we spent so many beautiful weekends in. That place was special to me. Now it will just be my personal monument to your betrayal. Anyway, when you guys get back on Sunday, I will have my stuff moved out. I'll be here with the written financials and a proposal for you to take to your lawyer. You pick your lawyer, I'll give you the fee. After I explain my proposal to you, I will leave this house forever." At that, Jeremy, with his pants finally on, said in as masculine a tone as he could manage, "You know you wouldn't be so cocky if didn't have that baseball bat." I responded quickly and with a venom in my voice that Lisa had no clue I was capable of. "You little shit, you think you are entitled to a fair fight? You are nothing but a cockroach and a sneak thief who scurries for cover when the lights come on. To turn a decent woman into your private slut while your wife is 5 months pregnant is lower than worm shit. Give me the slightest pretense to assert self-defense and I will hurt you. So, just let me know when you want to dance, punk." Lisa then turned to Jeremy and said, "She's pregnant? You said she hadn't touched you in a year. What the hell is going on?" And with that I'll take my leave. Happy hour at the strip club starts in just a little bit, so I must run. You kids have fun. As I was about to turn to leave, I spotted Lisa's open jewelry box with my latest Christmas gift of an expensive necklace in view. I snatched it up and said to Lisa, "I bet I'll find a stripper who will really appreciate this." I got in my car and left for a nice hotel not far from work. I grabbed a meal, went up to my room and went straight to sleep. I was surprised at how tired I felt. March 16th. Well, he caught us in the act. Jeremy thought it would be hot to fuck me in my marital bed while Mark was at work one last time since it was the only thing he asked me not to do. We had done it a couple of times before. It was another exercise in Jeremy claiming me for himself. I very much liked that idea, excising Mark and our pathetic marriage from my life. But just as things started to get intense, Mark snuck into the bedroom and banged on the door with a baseball bat. He seemed calm at first. He knew about the threesomes. He knew about our weekend plans. He then told us he had taken almost all the money from the bank and canceled my credit cards. He gave me a new card with a tiny credit balance and told us to eat at McDonald's. One last desperate effort at control is what Jeremy called it. Then Mark viciously yelled at Jeremy. I had never seen him so angry. I am sure that if Jeremy had tried anything, Mark would have killed him. He also said that Jeremy's wife was pregnant, something Jeremy had never told me. Jeremy later admitted it, but said it didn't make any difference to us. The pregnancy was a mistake and his crazy bitch wife refused to end it. The big thing about this episode, I won't have to worry about Mark's sorry, whiny ass anymore. He announced he was leaving. It has been a wild week. Jeremy set up another threesome for us earlier in the week. This time I wasn't blindfolded, and I was ready. Very hot. I left the office the next day early. At 3:30, after watching from a distance my wife and her asshole lover leave in her car, I walked into Betty's classroom. Hey, Betty. Have you heard anything? No, but something is up. There was a lot of very loud whispering today, she said. I imagine so. I accidentally caught them in my bed yesterday in my home. I then told Betty about their weekend in the mountains and about the diary. Now, I need to call Sim's wife and ask her to meet me today. Can I call from here? I'd like you here for support if that is okay. I've met Laura Sims, she is a nice person. We hit it off. Let me call her instead. Sure, but this news must be given in person. Ask if she will meet me. Betty arranged the meeting and insisted on being there with me. Our meeting with Laura garnered new details about Shithead. This would be the second time Jeremy had been found out to be cheating. The last time she accepted him back only on his solemn word never to stray again. Laura was going to kick his ass to the curb. The only thing left for me to do was wait. It struck me that this was the last days that I would spend in this house. That is when I lost it. I had been trying for so long and so hard to hold it all in. I needed to talk to someone. But the person I would go to when I needed to talk was Lisa. Then the phone rang. It was my daughter Linda. It was just the usual call, something was up, and she wanted an advance on her allowance so she could go out with some friends. But she quickly picked up from my voice that I wasn't right, and she asked. I told her nothing, but she pressed. My voice broke as I tried to assure that everything was okay, and she then demanded a straight answer. I told her that I had caught Mom and her lover in our bed, and that she was leaving me for him. With that I started to cry and told Linda I had to go. 2 hours later both Linda and Larry were back home. I told them everything. I shouldn't have, not to the kids, but once I had started, I couldn't stop. The weekend was spent with me tearfully talking about a life shattered and my children trying to comfort me. The kids helped me move some of my stuff to my brother's house. We hauled the bed and mattress from the master bedroom to the dump. That would be the last time they would fuck on my bed. When Sunday morning finally came and as the kids were leaving for school, I asked them not to contact their mother until after I had a chance to talk with her first. They agreed. That afternoon at about 1 p.m., I was sitting on the porch finishing up a rough draft of an offer to divide our property when Lisa came driving up from her weekend tryst. Her arrival was much earlier than I expected. I composed myself and appeared outwardly calm. She came up on the porch and I smiled at her from my chair and asked, "Did you kids have a good time?" My voice was as pleasant as I could manage. She responded with a forced smile and a sarcastic tone, "Wonderful time, thanks for asking. I'm just about finished writing out a proposal on how we might want to split things up. Why don't you go on inside and relax for a couple of minutes and let me finish and then I can get out of here after we go over a few things. It won't take long." She nodded and went inside. Just as I finished and had pushed print, she came out and yelled, "Where is my goddamn bed?" "It's at the dump," I said, matter-of-factly. Stunned, she looked at me, waiting for my explanation. That was the bed I shared with my wife. It was where I used to make love to the woman I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. It's not for a whore and her pimp. What am I supposed to sleep on? Lisa demanded, ignoring the insult. I guess you haven't noticed. The kids have moved their stuff out. You have your choice of the guest room or the two kids' room. Oh? You didn't notice all the kids' stuff is missing? What? Yeah, they were here this weekend. We moved their stuff into storage. I'm looking for a 3-bedroom apartment and they will be moving in with me for when they are in town. What? You can't steal my kids from me. They're not your kids anymore. Sweetie, when I read that you were going to make Jeremy their new father, I had no choice but to fight for them. It wasn't hard. Once I told what you have been doing and how you plan to replace me with your lover, they were as disgusted as I was. Lisa pulled out her phone and mumbled that she had to call Linda. I interrupted her, telling her she could call the kids later. I need to go over the financials with you so I can get out of here. She nervously put the phone down. You're just a wimpy little drama queen, aren't you? The kids won't leave me. I consider it more poetry than drama, but suit yourself. I responded, smiling. Sit down and go over these. It's a list of our assets. We need to try to divide them in half. Now, I must go inside and get my proposal off the printer. Back in a sec. I came back with my proposal. Lisa was sitting there with a bit of a smile on her face looking at my list of our assets. Are we really worth $5 million? She asked. Well, if there was a we would be. This will give your lawyer a bit of a head start. There is also a trust account I set up for the kids, that is not part of that total. I'd ask that you not to touch it. No matter how badly the cockroach whines about it. I'll front the money for your lawyer and ask for a credit at the final settlement. Hire a local guy or pick an out-of-town lawyer if you don't trust the locals. I don't trust your lover. When he hears the numbers involved here, he is going to want to take it all and disappear. We will be able to settle this quickly, but there does need to be a little time for you to understand what is involved. If you need more pocket money before we agree on the final settlement, just ask. I will be paying you alimony. I have set out an offer of how much here. Then I added, you can stay in the house. I will pay the mortgage and utilities for the time being until we agree on the alimony. She looked at the papers I had given her and saw the bottom line figures. She smiled. She then asked, so you are moved out? Yes. I will be leaving as soon as we finish here. I wouldn't want you to have to put up with this pathetic whiny wimp for 1 minute more than you must. I replied evenly. She recognized the term that both Sims and she used to refer to me and quickly realized I had been reading her journal. I then put a thumb drive on the table. This is a video of you being caught in bed with the asshole. I videoed it in case he tried anything stupid. Since he only cowered in the corner behind you, I won't need it. It does have a few seconds of you guys going at, so enjoy. Not as wild as his videos of your threesomes, though. After a pause, I used a softer, more serious voice and said, I will try to be kind out of respect to the memory I have of you and because you are the mother of my children, but sweetheart, you have hurt me so very much and I am dealing with so much pain and anger. You were the love of my life. But I have never known such pain, so I would ask that you at least pretend to have a little respect for me. That will make things run smoother. She said nothing in response. She stared at me for a moment, then went back to reading the financials I had given her. She sat there for several minutes reading how much she was getting with the hint of a smile returning to her face. It was much more than she thought. Suddenly we both looked up as a car came racing up our driveway, slamming on its brakes at the last second. Ah, the fun begins. I said to no one in particular. Lisa was surprised to see her lover's car. I pulled out the baseball bat hidden behind a planter and stood at the top of the porch steps. Hell, I was 50, I wasn't about to give a shithead half my age a fair fight. I am going to kick your sorry ass, motherfucker. How dare you even try to fuck with me? Sim screamed. Smiling for the first time in a long while, I stood at the top of the porch stairs, raised the baseball bat from my side and rested it on my shoulder and called out, "Bring it on, lover boy. Let's play ball." Seeing the baseball bat again, he froze in place 10 feet from me. "Oh, dear, you forgot to bring your bat again. You are a slow learner." I taunted. In an angry voice I added, "Set one foot in my house again before I leave, and I will break every bone in your body. Will you, old man?" His voice dripped with contempt, but he didn't take another step towards me or the house. Then added, "Well, your soulmate is now fucking me, you dickless wonder." Lisa went down and stood next to her lover, asked him, "What are you doing? Why are you here?" I answered before he could. I told his wife that you and shithead were up at the cabin fucking like animals. She thought he was at a teacher's conference. I told her you guys had been fucking since before Christmas, and I gave her a copy of that thumb drive. She finally knows? There was happiness in Lisa's face as she looked into her lover's eyes. This is good news. We can finally be together. Loverboy's face cringed. Yeah, I said, but he's not going to have much money after paying child support for 3 kids once the new baby comes. He is going to need your money. Turning to Jeremy, I added, I may be a whiny-assed wimp, and you may have stolen my wife, but at least I carried my own weight, you worthless leech. I provided for my family, which is more than you can say. Fucking around while your wife is home pregnant and with your kids, you are just a worthless deadbeat. I then said to Lisa, and you aren't any better, destroying 2 families by your slutting around. Then I added, and sweetie, there is more. He is on probation from his previous school for sexual harassment, and I understand there are a couple of new sexual harassment complaints being prepared from teachers he was hitting on at your school. He'll be cheating on you, too. Fuck that, yelled Jeremy, my wife won't leave me. Unlike you, wimp, my wife needs me. While you were struggling to get it up, I have been fucking your wife every day. While you were beating off, I was fucking her virgin ass, and she was eagerly swallowing my love juice. Your wife submitted to my every demand while your shriveled dick was just a distant memory. You treated her like a delicate flower, I fucked her hard, like she needed to be fucked. Yeah, I know, I said, faking sadness, but with the bat firmly clenched. But that doesn't really cover it. You won far more. Not only did you best me in sex, but you also stole my best friend, you stole the love of my life, you destroyed my connection with my soulmate. No, Loverboy, you won. All I have are my memories of a once happy family destroyed. She's all yours now. You don't get it, you spineless wimp, he said, I don't want her. My pleasure from her is that I was fucking your bitch. You can have your skanky ass bitch back, she's used up and don't need her anymore. Her cunt is all wore out anyway. I can't believe I went slumming with that old fat cow for as long as I did. He got into his car and started the engine. Lisa ran up to his car, calling out, Jeremy, you're leaving me? Jeremy, take me with you. Jeremy, don't leave me, please. The asshole put the car in reverse and backed up, never looking at Lisa. Lisa stared in disbelief as the car drove off, then just sat on the ground in our front lawn, crying. I walked over to Lisa, whispered in her ear, not here sweetie, and helped her stand up. There were already neighbors standing in their yards watching us. I walked Lisa inside our house, my arm tenderly around her in support. I sat her down on the couch, asked if she'd like some coffee, she shook her head no and buried her face into her hands sobbing. I whispered in her ear, don't worry, he only wants to return to his wife because her parents are wealthy. But she's not having him back. He will return to you. After a few minutes of sitting next to her rubbing her back, I walked back outside to the porch, sat down, and called Lisa's mom. Hey, Sarah, I said when Lisa's mom answered, I have a very big request for you. We're dealing with a very difficult problem here and I desperately need your help right now. Okay, Mark, what is going on? Lisa has been having an affair for the past 4 months. I could hear Sarah gasp. This weekend everything came to a head. I told Lisa I was leaving her and then her boyfriend broke up with her. Apparently, he plans on going back to his wife. Oh, dear God, no. No. This can't be right, how could Lisa do that? Mark, dear, I am so sorry. Sarah continued after a pause, I have no words, Mark, I don't know what to say. Me either, Sarah. Lisa is crying her eyes out over her boyfriend and I'm not the one that can give her comfort. Can you come over and be with Lisa? I worry that she might harm herself when I leave. I can stay here till you get here, but then I must go. She doesn't need me here. Oh, Mark, I'll be there in just a few minutes. As Lisa's whimpering died down, I heard her dial her cell. I knew it was to the kids to find out about them moving out. I went inside to listen. When my daughter answered, I could hear her yell out, You horrible woman. How could you do that to our father? Who the hell are you? Do you know that while you were with your creepy lover, Larry, and I were consoling Dad this weekend? I had never seen my father cry before, and he cried over you this whole weekend. And now you want to talk to me after you have destroyed my family? You are a monster. I hate you. I will never talk to you again. You are dead to me." With that she hung up. Lisa never got a word in. Lisa looked up at me, the tears starting again. I said simply, "You told your lover that he would love my kids and that he would be their new father. Sorry, sweetie, but I will fight for my children." She looked at me again for a moment, surprised at being reminded of all the things she had said. "What happens now?" she asked between tears. "Your mom will be here in a bit, then I'll leave. My miserable existence here is over. This place is all yours. Your lover will be back. His insulting you was just to get to me. It was just another way of him belittling me. But do be careful with your money with him. After the divorce, the bank of hubby will be closed." I went out to the porch. A few minutes later her mom drove up. I greeted her at her car and she gave me a warm hug and asked if I was all right. "No, I'm not. But Lisa is in worse shape. Sarah, Lisa needs her mother right now. The children are also leaving her. Be gentle with her." Sarah went into the house, and I got into my car and left. The next day Lisa called the school to say she was sick. Jeremy went in and was promptly escorted out, advised he was suspended without pay pending termination. That day Lisa spent with her mother. Lisa was in bad shape and Sarah didn't leave her side. On Tuesday, Lisa went to school and learned that Jeremy had been fired and that she had been placed on probation. Betty approached her and told her to lean on her as much as she needed in this difficult time. They finally talked for the first time in months. That afternoon, as Linda was leaving, Jeremy met her in the parking lot, but I let her tell that story from her diary. March 18th. What has happened? In the span of 10 minutes my whole world collapsed. Mark left. The kids have moved out. A very angry Jeremy shows up to beat up Mark but backs down when Mark stands up to him. Jeremy then says the most horrible things about me, and leaves. I then call my darling Linda and she tells me that I am dead to her. What have I done? March 20th. I went to school today. Collins summoned me into his office, told me I had violated the morals clause of my contract, that I would be given a written reprimand that would be placed in my HR file, and that I would be placed on probation for the rest of the contract year, and next year's contract would also be subject to the same probation. I was so humiliated standing in front of Collins. He also told me that the superintendent wanted to terminate me, but Mark's standing up for me made the difference. Betty came up to me and hugged me when I came out of Collins' office. She asked how I was holding up. She told me not to do this by myself, that she was there for me to lean on. I cried. I have been so cold to her this year. After the last bell, Betty came to my room to talk. She told me how much she had missed me. Then she told me how she didn't want anything to do with me until Mark called. Mark asked her to help me. She said she is so glad she did, because under all the sadness and pain I am in now, she can see the old me. As I was leaving school, there was Jeremy leaning against my car. He told me he finally decided to leave his wife. He asked if the wimp had moved out yet. When I told him he had, he told me that he was going to move in with me. I was stunned, after all those things he said just 2 days earlier, and he was going on as if Sunday never happened. Mark may have been right about him. I told him my mom was staying with me, and that now would not work. He then suggested a visit to our love motel. I told him, no, that I needed some space after the shit that had happened. He started to explain, but I told him not now and got in my car and left. Then came Saturday morning. I was staying with my brother when there was a loud pounding on the door. I was closest, so I answered it. It was Lisa. "You've poisoned my babies against me, you fucking bastard," she screamed at me. "Hey sweetie, please come in," I said in as soft a voice as I could manage. "You've turned my mom against me, you've turned my friends against me, you've turned my school against me. You've left me nothing." She continued to scream. "Lisa, may I say something?" I said while she was catching her breath. "No," she shouted. "I need you to give me my babies back." She continued. "I agree," I said. "Our children need you, Lisa. I know that. We need them to get over this. Don't give me your bullshit. You caused this." Her anger was unabated, and she still hadn't moved from the front door. I could hear my brother standing just behind me. "I'd like to talk about it," I said softly. With that she screamed, "Oh, cursed you," then turned and stormed off. I called Lisa's mom. I told her what happened. Her mom said she was agitated this morning, but when she left, she had no idea where she was going. Mark, she is in a bad place, and she needs someone to blame besides herself. Of course, you are right, Sarah. With that, our conversation ended. March 26th. April 16th. This week I finished my first week of counseling with Dr. Pat, the psychologist. She is helping me talk through the pain and hopefully find a way out of this mess I am in. She has been kind, but that does not mean this has been easy. Mom says that Mark has been calling every day to check on me, and he gives her reports on Larry and Linda. At Mark's request, the kids called Mom just to talk about school. Linda told Mom she wouldn't talk about me. Larry told Mom that it was too painful to talk about what happened, but that maybe someday. Mark is manipulating everything, trying to make it worse for me. Sure, he has promised me all sorts of riches, but that's only words. He is trying to get me to let my guard down. Towards the end of April, it happened again. The pounding on the door on a Saturday morning. Because it was familiar, I went to the door. It was Lisa. She wasn't screaming this time. "You win, I give up. What can I do to get the kids back?" she asked. "Please come in, sweetie," I replied. She very gingerly stepped into my brother's house but continued to talk loudly. "Is it the house? Do you want me to give up the house?" asked Lisa. "No, dear. Not at all," I replied. "The money?" she asked. "I want nothing from you," I responded. "Lisa, our children need you. I clouded up your relationship with them by letting them see that you hurt me. And you clouded up that relationship by hurting me. We both must unfuck what we have done. Not for our sakes, but for theirs." Lisa listened and we continued our conversation. I told her what I have repeatedly told them was that you were a great mother, that you loved them both intensely, and while you had been a shitty wife, you are a great mother. I suggested we call the kids. I picked up my phone and dialed them both up on a three-way connection. I told them Mom was with me and was listening. I assured them they didn't have to talk to her, they just had to listen to me. I told them Mom and I had put aside our differences to convince them that they need to open their hearts to their mom. We were not asking for forgiveness, just an effort to move forward. None of us are perfect, including your mom, except where it involves her love for you guys. I told them. I then told them to just think of what I had just said. They both promised they would. Linda spoke up. "Is creepy boyfriend still in the picture?" Lisa answered that he was not. "Good. I'll think about it," and abruptly hung up. Larry then said, "Goodbye, Dad." And hung up too. The sharp ending was upsetting, but Lisa liked what I said and said so. I then asked Lisa if she could come over next Saturday morning to take stock in any progress with the kids and figure out what to do next. She agreed. May 6th. I went over to Mark's yesterday. I was still angry about the way he had involved the kids. He accepted some responsibility and then asked that we work together to fix things between me and my babies. We called the kids and Mark spoke to them while I listened in. He told them to open their hearts to me. He said I was a shitty wife, but a perfect mother. Linda asked if Jeremy was still in the picture, and I said no. She then hung up. Mark said we need to give them time, it is still raw for them. He added, it's still raw for him, too. I do have more hope today. We met the next Saturday morning to talk about the kids. I had breakfast ready for her. I told her the kids were not quite ready to move on, but they were no longer expressing anger and bitterness in our calls. My focus was to get them to stay with their mom over summer break, but that wasn't happening, so I went ahead and put a deposit on a furnished apartment for us. Lisa was not happy. Reconciliation must be voluntary, not forced, I told her. May 20th. Yesterday, Mark told me he has rented himself a furnished apartment and the kids would stay there with him for summer vacation. I was disappointed, but not really surprised. One more week and school is out. I am exhausted. My psychologist, Dr. Pat, spent the week making me talk about Jeremy. It was painful. But she needed me to face the fact because I was cheating, and I had rubbed Mark out of existence. So long as he was invisible, I didn't have to deal with the betrayal and pain I was inflicting on him. She made me deal with the fact that I had fallen in love with a shallow, crude, manipulative man and in doing so had thrown away a 25-year marriage. I continued to try to get the kids to reconcile with their mom. Their response, she destroyed our family, to which I would say no one suffers more from that than her. but they agreed to at least meet their mother. I set it up for dinner. They promised to let the night be a mere social event to see if they could even stand being in the same room with her. Next, I went over to talk to Lisa. It was the first time I had been to the house since the Sunday afternoon confrontation. We spoke on the porch. I asked her over for dinner at my brother's just to try to be social again. I told her my brother would be there, but I didn't tell her the kids would be, because I wasn't sure they would be, even after their promises. The kids did show up and they were even early. Lisa arrived right on time. As she entered, the kids were out of sight in a bedroom. Lisa thanked me for the invitation and gave my brother a hug and thanked him for taking care of me. As she broke the hug with my brother, I asked her, "What about the two behind you?" She turned, seeing her children she burst into a great smile, laughed, then cried, and then started to sob. After a pause, Linda said, "Mom? Mommy, don't cry," as she rushed to hug her mother. The kids were shocked to see their mother dissolve in front of them. It caught them unprepared. For them to stay angry, Lisa had to be defiant, and she wasn't. My son joined his sister, calling out a more restrained, "Mom, please, don't cry." Even my brother was teary-eyed. I was the only dry eye in the house. After 10 minutes, Lisa finally broke her hug with her son and daughter and walked over to me, and hugged me tight and said, "I never deserved you." I finally ended it with, "Okay, enough of this. Who's hungry?" When dinner was on the table and we were all seated, Lisa asked my brother if she could say a blessing. He nodded, we all held hands, Lisa sitting next to me. After a moment, Lisa said, "As we gather for a family meal, please God, forgive me my sins against my family. Thank you for my son and daughter, who I love with all my heart. And thank you for my husband who has put aside his just anger with me to save our family. He is a good man, to whom I have done much evil." After a long moment, Lisa released my hand and tried to pretend all was normal and told her son to pass the meat to his uncle. After the meal, Lisa and the kids took a walk. My brother and I sat and drank some coffee. "Well, that was a hell of a tearjerker," says my brother. "Yeah, that ought to hold us for a while." I replied. I was wrong. A half an hour later, Lisa and the kids returned and Lisa said to me, "The kids told me how it was you that finally brought us all together. You may not believe me, but I do love you. I have been so lost, so wrong. I had a wonderful thing and I threw it away." With that she wrapped her arms around me and kissed me. I received her kiss and wrapped my arms around her tight. When we finally broke for air, I whispered into her ear, "I never, ever stopped loving you. I tried, I really tried." After an hour more of chatting, it was time to go. I asked my son to drive his mom home because she was a bit spacey from all the excitement. I followed so I could drive my son home. As we were leaving, Lisa gave me another hug and asked quietly, "Please, stay with me tonight." "No," I said. "I do love you, but I'm still in too much pain." She sighed and kissed me sweetly on the lips and said, "Maybe someday soon." June 23d. I am still shaking from last night. Mark surprised me at dinner at his brother's by having my babies there. After all I have done, he is still standing up for me, he still places me first in everything he does. I had assumed he would always be angry with me, but he is not. He is still angry, but compassion seems to be the stronger feeling. My babies and I have a lot to work on, but they still love me and that means everything. I don't know if Mark and I have a future after what I have done, but I know he still loves me too. The kids moved back with Lisa for the rest of the summer. I called her often for a quick chat. The kids also reported on how their mom was doing. They would tell me she better, but they could tell there was still sadness about her. So, did I want to pursue a reconciliation with her after all she had done to me? It would never be like before, but was there something to salvage? One day Linda asked to have lunch with me. We had a light meal at a local eatery, and after we had finished, she asked, "Dad, why don't you move back with us? Larry and I want you back, and more important, so does Mom." "Oh, sweetie, that is a hard question. I do love your mother very much. But I am a coward. She hurt me very much. My male pride is in a shambles. Maybe male pride is an evolutionary hangover from our caveman days, but that doesn't make it any less real. I saw your mom break down over you kids and I saw her break down over her lover, but she never broke down over me. I know she wants me back, but is it because she has found the love we once had and lost, or is it because she wants security and a cuddle now and then? If it's the second thing, then the next young, attractive, charmer will sweep her off her feet again. I haven't the strength to endure that. Linda listened, nodded, and said, I understand. But some things you just have to take on faith. And maybe someday I will have that faith, or courage or strength, or whatever it is I need to stick my neck on the chopping block again. Don't give up on hope yet. 2 months later the kids left for college. For Lisa things were a little better when the kids were around. But now she was alone again and dreaded about being around her peers at school who all knew about her shameful behavior. But she felt she had to go back to teaching. The Saturday morning after the start of Lisa's school year, I showed up at her front door. Would you like to discuss our futures? I said. She invited me and we sat at the kitchen table. She made coffee and we chatted about nothing for a few minutes. Look, sweetie, I began. I don't know whether you even want us to have a future. But if you are up for just exploring the idea, I'd like to have a conversation about it. I mean a brutally honest conversation. Our old marriage is dead, but maybe we can start anew. Such a thing may not be possible, there has been way too much pain, but I am willing to discuss it. I sipped my coffee. Lisa said, I would very much like that. And then she asked, just curious, but since we are on the subject, why haven't you filed for divorce yet? Oh, the petition for divorce and a proposed settlement agreement have been on my desk for 3 or 4 months now, just waiting for my signature. She nodded. Oh, okay. I won't sign it while there might be a chance to salvage something. I then asked, how about next Saturday we spend the whole day discussing this? Saturday came quickly. Lisa fixed a nice breakfast. After breakfast and a leisurely coffee, we talked like we used to talk. Then, reluctantly, we got started. She asked if I'd ever forgive her. My response was I didn't know, the hurt is still real and deep. But maybe we can move on from here. I need to understand what happened and why. It will be painful for me and you. It is what I need. And I need you to know the pain you caused. She nodded. The days before your weekend with Jeremy in the mountains, I read a couple of years' worth of your diary. I saved it to my computer, printed it off and have copies at my office. That's why I was in the house when Jeremy and you were going at it. I continued, it seems you began to lose interest in us months before Jeremy. Well, that explains how you knew so much. I had guessed as much. But as to when I lost interest, no, I don't think that is true. Why do you say that? Interrupted Lisa. I talked about references to me in her diary, how they seemed to decline months before Jeremy entered the picture. I also told her I had sensed a distance between us at about the same time. And I was very much aware that our lovemaking had hit a rough patch. Lisa just shrugged and said she wasn't aware of any of that. I went over the appearance of Jeremy in her journal, which happened a month or so after Linda left for university, and we had become empty nesters. When she wrote of Jeremy it was unabashed praise. Mentions of me in the diary were negative. The words annoying, trying, irritating were common to describe my brief references in the diary. Most often there was no mention of me at all. In the months leading up to December it seemed I was being erased. She reread parts of her diary with me. She apologized for the negative things she said about me. She blamed her fawning over Jeremy at this point on depression from becoming an empty nester. She repeated what her psychologist had said, that she was depressed and was looking for a shiny thing to brighten her up. Jeremy was new and shiny. I agreed that made sense, but why was deserting her husband for forbidden sex the shiny thing? She didn't know. I asked again, in a stronger tone, what about me caused you to need hurt me? She told me that blaming me for a rotten marriage was a way for her not to feel guilty about destroying our marriage. By November I told her that I knew our marriage was in serious trouble. We evolved a new normal, a quiet coexistence. Little or no conversation followed by quiet time in front of the TV. But by December, even that changed. She started coming home later, an hour or two later. Instead of quietly watching TV together in the evening, she spent every evening grading papers and preparing lesson plans in the den, leaving me alone to watch TV. Things had changed. I pointed out that her diary told that her Jeremy had openly brought up the idea of an affair to her weeks before Thanksgiving. She said that was impossible, she was married, but she was clearly intrigued, and her diary told of continued flirting between them. Then the passionate kiss at a faculty party followed by the hasty trip to the Stardust Motel. After that, the stardust became an almost daily routine. Afternoon delight was your diary description. Then Christmas. The kids were home and there was warmth with the kids and mom and with the kids and me, but between mom and me, more of the cold freeze. Christmas morning revealed a stark change in our family tradition. Before, Lisa and I decided on presents together, wrapped them together, and wrote, "From Mom and Dad," on the little cards. Not this year. I was not consulted. With no time to shop, I put checks in 2 plain envelopes, wrote, "From Mom and Dad," and handed them to the kids. Lisa wrote only, "From Mom," on each of a dozen presents she wrapped under the tree. Then you opened your present from me. It was an expensive necklace and earring set. You looked at it, said, "Ah, that's nice," without even a glance at me. You then put it down without showing it to anyone. Linda picked it, opened it, squealed, and said, "Oh, Dad, these are beautiful." The look on your face showed you were irritated by the fuss she was making. Linda looked at you and said, "Mom, what's wrong with you, these are beautiful?" To which you said, "Yes, it is nice," smiling at Linda, but not at me. The present from you to me was a tie. Linda and Larry both cornered me later and asked what was going on between us. I told them I didn't know. Mom has been so cold to me. I was worried our marriage was dying. That was a $5,000 necklace. Mom loves jewelry. Then the week after Christmas you disappeared for hours at a time with no hint of where. I now know you were with Jeremy. When the kids left for university, the cold silence returned. Lisa sighed and finally said something. By then my loyalty was only to Jeremy. I wasn't going to cheat on Jeremy, physically or emotionally. I was preparing for my future with him. You were tearing my heart out. I know. To be brutally honest, I no longer cared. I was too wrapped up in this wild adventure with Jeremy. My life center had changed, and you were not part of it. So, by Christmas you had a plan? I asked. No, by Christmas I only had passion, no plan. I had dreams or delusions, but nothing like a plan. I dreamt of Christmas in our home with Jeremy and the kids. And where was I? You were not in the dream at all. She answered, her eyes lowered. I was invisible? I asked. You were invisible, she answered. I am so sorry. We moved on. I noted the explicit description she had in her diary. I noted how important it was to both that this sex act created Jeremy's ownership of you to the exclusion of me. Why? I asked. Why was your shared passion not enough? It Jeremy's way of making me totally his by symbolically eradicating you. He said we were exorcising your possession of me. The idea that I was to be totally Jeremy's was exciting. I joined in his disrespecting you to excite Jeremy and closed the chapter of my life with you. Then you wrote of our kids loving Jeremy, of him becoming their friend, role model, and their new dad, I said. I was crushed reading this. Not only did you want me to disappear, but you also wanted to remove me from our children's lives. Why? Did you hate me that much that you had to completely strip me from the family? Lisa replied, my fantasy was of a perfect world where there were no disturbing images. You were the image of my infidelity. My need to erase you from existence was simple, I was betraying you and because of that, you had to disappear. I had to justify my behavior. And why did you sexually give this man things in just a few weeks that had been denied to me in 25 years of marriage? I asked. Maybe because your love for me was without condition. No matter what I did, you would love me, you would be there for me. With Jeremy, there were conditions attached to his love. It was a do this for me to prove your love. I was trading sexual acts for his continued devotion. I did enjoy those things, it was only my initial reluctance that I traded him for his love. After doing it though, I admit that I did it the next time for me as well as for him. So pure, unconditional love is less intense than transactional love? I asked. Yeah, I guess. Which brings us to the night you came home after 10 at night, 4 hours later than usual. And you didn't even bother to clean up after your threesome sex marathon. Why? It was just another stop on this stupid adventure of mine. I didn't intend to be so obvious, but in the end, I didn't care that much that I was. I am so sorry. That brought us to the day I caught Lisa and her lover in the act. I told her I hadn't planned it, but I did take advantage of it. It was a painful thing for me to witness. I reminded her how the confrontation went down while they were both on our bed. I enjoyed watching your lover cower as I gave vent to my anger, I said. You really frightened Jeremy. He had pegged you as a wimp, and when you appeared in the doorway, he was frightened. Then when you focused on him, he was truly terrified. I was surprised and frightened too. I had never seen you like that. Well, I never let myself get angry with you around. And the only way Jeremy could have pegged me for a wimp was based on how you described him to me. She was silent for a moment, then said, I guess you're right. Jeremy's name for you is what I needed to hear. Because of my betrayal of you, I needed you to be flawed. By the way, you scared Jeremy badly. The weekend at the cabin was not romantic because of you. He bitched at me all weekend. We had sex, but without the passion. Lisa said. I moved on, saying, that evening, Linda called. It was an innocent call, she didn't know anything, but talking to her I lost control and started to cry. I told her you had left me for your lover. The kids rushed home to be with me that weekend. I went on to tell Lisa how utterly devastated I was that weekend. I added how when the kids were leaving Sunday morning, Larry told me that this place no longer felt like home. He was in tears as he said it. That gets us to Sunday afternoon. My plan for a graceful exit pretty much went up in smoke with the arrival of Jeremy. I could tell that my presence came as a surprise to him. Still, just when I had thought I had suffered all the pain there was to suffer, you joined him in the front yard, standing by him and against me. That was an additional humiliation. And then when he left you and you collapsed in tears over him. It was also just another kick in the gut for me. I was still in love with Jeremy, even though I could now see the rotten in him with his lies about his wife, his uncaring opinion of her pregnancy, his inability to deal with you confronting him, and his taking it out on me because you hurt his pride. I was seeing you in a new light, a controlled strength that I had been blinded to before, your compassion when I deserved none. But I had burned my bridges with you. For better or worse, until he drove away, Jeremy was the man I had chosen. But in a kindness that I did not deserve, you came up to me, picked me up and tenderly walked me inside, out of view of the prying eyes of our neighbors. I added, after seeing you collapse and weep for Jeremy, after everything he said, I knew you still loved him. Had he let you in his car that afternoon, your happily ever after would have been with him, and I would have been thrown out with the garbage. The truly horrible thing was that I still loved you. As hard as I tried, I couldn't not love you. After a pause, I asked the question again. So why did going after was the shiny thing have to be the end of our marriage? Because the kids had left, because until Jeremy, my life was over. But why did the shiny thing have to be a lover? I don't know. Without the kids, I thought I didn't have anything else to live for. I wasn't enough? No answer. She wouldn't say. I felt a cold shudder. This wasn't going to work. Our marriage was dead. If we breathed life into now, how much longer would it last? What I was dealing with now was a woman who had lost her true love, and who was settling on me, someone to keep her warm at night until the next Lancelot came along. Despite being given the opportunity, at no time did she try to tackle the question of why it was so easy to chuck me out for this other fellow. But she had already given me the answer. I was a wimp. Not gentle, not mild-mannered, not one who respected his wife, not someone who sought to always please his wife wanted, but a wimp. That was my flaw, that was why it was easy to chuck me out. Look, I said, the odds of us working this out are not good. I don't want to try to reconcile and then a year later find you fucking some other shiny new fellow because I am boring. You loved him even after he spurned you. I was nothing more than dirt, and that you thought our children would love him as their new father. I am terrified that you are now just settling on me. She looked up. The tears were coming down. She spoke in a shaky voice. It is true that I loved Jeremy. Even after he threw me away, I still loved him. I wanted him to be the new father of my children. I wanted you to disappear. But I am not settling on you. I love you. My love for Jeremy was a delusion. My love for you is true. Please, please, forgive me. She started to cry. Do you know the pain I felt when I realized that the love of my life, my soulmate, and my best friend wanted nothing more to do with me, that she wanted me erased? She lifted her head up, her watery eyes trying to focus, and looked at me. She saw a cold, hard expression on my face. The same look she saw the day I caught her in our bed with Jeremy. Filled with pure panic, she said, I love you more than ever, Mark. Don't leave me. I can't go on without you. Yeah, I felt that too for a long while. But you will make it somehow. Besides, Jeremy will still take you back. You won't have near the money that his wife had from her parents, but you can give him the lifestyle he so craves for at least a few years. No. No, oh God, no, she cried out. I stood and got ready to walk out. Are you leaving me? I paused facing the door with my back to her. I thought, she deserves that. But I can't do it. Yes, a walk away is the rational thing. But then love is not about rationality, and I still love her. I sighed, looked at her and said, no, not yet. We have a lot to think about. I still love you, but I did tell you that this might not work. She stood up, looked at me and said, look, damn it, I have done what you asked, I told you everything. I was brutally honest. I gave you what you wanted. Listen, your love is unconditional, and I fucked up by valuing your love too lightly. But whether you like me, or want to be with me, even whether you respect me, is transactional. I know that if I want you in my life, and I do, I very much do, if I want to be your best friend again, and I do, if I want you to have any respect for me at all, then I must make sure I earn that every day. If you come back to me, I will do that, I will earn your friendship and respect every day, and maybe even someday, your trust. I will earn every moment you spend time with me by everything I do. I walked over to her, pulled her into my arms, and hugged her hard. She hugged me back. We stood there for a few minutes. I then whispered in her ear, I love you. I am not giving up, I can never give up on you. This is very hard for me. I worry you will hurt me again. But until then, my love for you will just be my vice, my addiction. She looked me in the eye, her own eyes still full of tears, and with a growing smile on her face, she answered, I will never hurt you again. Returning the smile, I said, yeah, I'm tired of going slow. I love you, babe. Just then, as I suddenly saw the woman who used to be a wife, I saw the woman I fell in love with, the women I married, the women who bore my children. I saw the women I loved with all my heart. The woman betrayed me, who caused me so much pain and anguish had faded from view. She was still there, but I didn't care. I kissed her with more passion and intensity than I had in years. We went upstairs. I slowly, gently removed her clothes. I exposed her beauty, then laid her on the bed. She looked up at me as I removed my clothes. She was smiling with teary eyes. I leaned over her and kissed her softly. Afterwards, I rolled off and laid beside her holding her as only a lover would. We were silent, both looking into each other's eyes, both of us tearing from found love that had been lost. Finally, I said tenderly, I love you, Lisa Murphy. No matter what has happened in the past or what might happen in the future, I will always love you. She buried her head into my shoulder. We made love 2 more times that night and fell asleep in each other's arms. I woke up the next morning and gently freed myself from my new bride's embrace. I quietly walked downstairs, fixed myself some coffee and tried to figure everything else out. It seems I had thrown rationality and bitterness away and surrendered to the stronger power of my love for this woman. Yes, I knew that she had inflicted the worst pain I had ever known. Yes, I had no guarantee that she wouldn't have the horrors of the past year revisit me. I had no rational reason to believe that she wouldn't. I was proceeding based not on a well-reasoned balance of facts. I was proceeding solely on the love in my heart. As untrustworthy as was, I didn't care. In the end, I decided that we were worth the risk. This was the only woman I wanted in my life, and whether we made it to happily ever after or not, I was going to follow my heart. Lisa and I sought professional counseling, which helped. We sold our house. Larry had been right, it was no longer a home, it was just a house. We had a symbolic second wedding with the kids and Sarah in attendance. The next summer, I took a long leave of absence and we traveled to Europe. We saw all the museums, cathedrals, and castles that we could stand. We made love on a nude beach at sunset on the Mediterranean before an appreciative audience, and engaged in other adventures that shall remain between us both. I tracked Jeremy. He overdosed one night on some cocaine cut with fentanyl. He was lucky, they were able to resuscitate him. The married woman he was with in the room with him was not so lucky. She could have been Lisa had I given up on her. In an interview with cops afterwards, the cops got him to tell him where he got the coke so that they could get it off the streets. He gave up a dealer. They then charged Jeremy with negligent homicide of the woman he was with. He got 10 years. But one day, after bragging about what he could get married women to do, a lifer whose wife had cheated on him heard him. Jeremy died after slipping in the shower and banging his head a dozen times on the hard floor.